The difference between doodling and Zentangle is basically that when you're actually doing a tangle, as we call it, so we don't actually say we're Zentangling, we say that we're doing a tangle, you are concentrating just on the mark that you're making on the paper at that time. Whereas when you doodle, you tend to drift away and kind of think about other things. That's really the best way I can describe the difference between doodling and tangling, because this whole sort of practice is to concentrate on that mark that you are making on your card at that specific moment. And that is the only thing that you really want to be thinking about, just that mark at that moment, in that time, in the now. You've got a little bit of scrap paper. We can just talk about the tangles that we're going to be doing. A poke leaf tangle, which is basically 2 little lines like that, and then a little smiley face, and then it's kind of like a little heart that comes out like this, and it creates what we call a poke leaf. Now the tangles I use are tangles that were created and invented by the Zentangle, basically the original people that set up Zentangle that I've just said. I'm not a qualified Zentangle teacher. I am just during lockdown sharing this basically this practice with you to give you a space that you can just lose yourself in. So just want to make that clear. But I do use the original tangles that they created. So then with this little poke leaf, it basically just grows out from each one and just builds up. Okay. And you can have them really tiny, so I can have a little small one that comes in here. Now, while I'm doing this, the one rule I can tell you about Zentangle is that you never draw over the top of a tangle. You always go underneath. So you always imagine where that tangle would be under. So I haven't drawn the rest of my heart over the top here. So I'm always coming from underneath. And so when I come to do my next one, it's going to go behind that one, and it'll probably come out about there. And then it's going to go behind this one, and it's going to come out about there. So as you see, I never draw over the top of something that I've already drawn. I'm always going from underneath. So here, if I do another little poke leaf, I will come out from behind and underneath like that. And that's basically called Holiba. It means that you just never, you're always coming from underneath, you're never going over the top. Okay, so that's one of the little tangles that we will do today. The other one, I'm sorry, I'll just write that so that you know what that's called. So that's poke leaf. Poke leaf. The other tangle that we'll have a go at is called Kiko. And Kiko is like a basket weave style, and it can be basically very simple. You do 4 lines one way, and then you'll do 4 lines in the opposite direction, and then you'll do 4 lines, and then you'll do 4 lines, and it'll just keep going like that and building up. And when you come to the next sort of level, you're going to do 4 lines going the opposite way on that side, excuse me, and then 4 lines coming down, and they will be all different sizes, and there'll be different widths, and that's absolutely fine. They are what they are and how you've drawn them, okay? And that is called Kiko.
Do they join up, Pauline, those?
Where there's a space, so I've got a little gap here. They do touch each other, yes. So if and they can actually be more, if you did them more rounded. So if I kind of did them more of a slightly arc shape, which you can do, and kind of have them kind of go more arced, because they are what you make them. Oops. You can have them kind of slightly, I know I'm doing them quite big so that you can see. And then you can have them kind of go on this side now. And then as you see, these all kind of will touch each other. Okay.
Makes them look 3D, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And then you just build them up, but there's never, so it kind of looks like a basket weave. But there's never a right or wrong with this. So, you know, when you're drawing it, there's absolutely no judgment. And we don't have rubbers or erasers in this Zentangle, because basically there are no mistakes. It is, as you draw it on the paper, that is what it was supposed to be. So you're not trying to create a, you know, a Van Gogh or something. You are just creating this piece of artwork today, and it is exactly how it is meant to be. So, and like you can go in and then just colour in these little gaps that you have created, and that kind of builds up more of the 3D as well. So that's another one of the tangles that we'll do. And then we'll do some lines, because basically with Zentangle, if you can basically draw a circle, draw a rainbow, draw a straight line, you can do any kind of tangle. So with this one, we're going to come out from underneath our tangle. Now I know some that have been with me before have already seen this Hollyba tangle, and it teaches you that concept that I was talking about, where you always are going under and you're never drawn over the top of a tangle. To start with, I'm going to start with a pencil, and I'm going to start with my square. And what I'd like you to do is get really comfortable in your seat. And I want you to take a deep breath in, and then just slowly release that breath out. And then just take another deep breath in, and slowly let that breath go. And you just want to have your feet just flat on the floor if you can, and just feel your bum on your seat. You're just really comfortable, and we're going to pick up our pencil and we're going to start. Now I'm going to do my marks a lot heavier than you need to, because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to start by putting 4 dots, 1 in each corner. Okay, and then I'm going to join them up. So I'm going to just come along, and as I say, I'm doing it a lot darker. You don't need to do it as dark. If I was doing it normally, I would just be kind of coming along with a very light line like that, but you would not necessarily be able to see that on screen. And we're just going to join those, and this is our border. And it doesn't have to be straight. You can have a whirly border if you like, so it doesn't have to be a straight border, just it's how you want it to be. So inside our border, we're going to create a string, and a string is basically a pencil line that I'm going to draw, and this will separate our tile into sections, and then we can draw a tangle in each of those sections. Now your string can be any shape, so I could have it as a Z going across the page. I could have it just as straight lines coming down. It can be curvy. It's basically your string, but we're going to basically split the card into 4. So it could, you might have a very small section and 3 larger sections. It really is up to you. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm just going to come down with a kind of curvy line like that, and then I'm going to just spin my tile, and I'm going to have another slightly less curvy line like that. Okay, And now I'm going to swap to my pen. So we're going to start, and I'm going to start with that little poke leaf that I showed you, and we're going to start from the border here, and I'm just going to start drawing them. So that's my first one there, and then I'm just going to have them coming off. And as I said before, they can be any size. They can be tiny, they can be really big. They will be the size that they're meant to be. And if you hit against another one, just imagine where that would come out and just follow that through. And I'm going to have them coming down this little string here. And you turn your tile so that you're comfortable. So you can always move your tile around. Just spinning it so that you are at your most comfortable when you're drawing each of your little poke roots. And just following that down that string. And obviously yours is going to stop where your string goes. It's going to be different to my string, and that's absolutely fine. And you might want to come back up and just add a few more. It's entirely up to you if you want to just pop a couple of little ones in. But just remember that they always go behind. And when you come to the border here, you are able to go over it. There's no rules about that you have to stop just because you've reached that edge line. So your little poke roots can just pop across, that's absolutely fine. And then just take a little look. And what I'm going to start doing now is actually just colouring in the little gaps that are in between my little poke roots here. I know some are bigger gaps, and that's fine. But just in the middle bits here, I'm just going to colour in that space. Just fill it in. And I'm just spinning my tile. And just working my way down. And just on those little inside pieces where my little poke roots have all met. And just coloured in that gap. And that really makes them start to pop out. And don't forget to breathe. Okay, there's no up and down with Zentangle, so you can have your tile. It might be that way that you look at it. It might be that way. Could be that way. Might even be that way. So there isn't actually a concept of up and down. So when you've finished your tile, you can look at it at all different angles and appreciate it from each and every way. So when you've looked, you might think, oh, actually, I think I might just want to add another little one in there. And that's absolutely fine. You can just have a wee look. And if you feel that you want to just pop another little poke root in there, sorry, poke leaf, then just go ahead and do that. Just add another one up at the top actually. Just coming off that one. Okay, so that's my poke leaf there. So I'm going to turn my towel around this way now. And I'm going to have my hollyba, which is my lines that look like this. I'm going to have those starting to come from this edge of the tile, and I'm going to have them in this sort of space in between these strings here, so on my border and up to this string. I could have it going straight across, there's no problem, and maybe one will. We'll wait and see what happens. So I'm going to start at the top, I'm going to come down, and when I hit that little string there I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to do another line, just coming down and stop like that. And I'm going to just turn my towel around, and I'm going to go this way. And that line, as I say, always has to come underneath, so that's just going to come along, and when it hits the poke leaf it'll just stop. And if I wanted to, because this sort of string, I could actually say, oh, actually I'm going to have that coming out the other side of my poke leaf and just come into the edge of my border there, and then I'll have another little line here and have that coming along, and then that's just going to come out like that. And then I'm just going to turn my towel around, and I might have one just starting down here and working up. It's going to pop out the bottom, and then it's going to come out the bottom there. And if I wanted to, I'd say actually I'm going to have it just continuing out to the other side of that tile. And then I'll do my second line, which is basically an aura, which is a shadow of that first line. And if I turn my towel around, I'm going to have one coming from the top here, going down, I'm going to just aura that, and have that coming out, and then just thinking where is that going to, so if you just come along and then, oh stop, it's not going to go over the road, it's going underneath, and then it's going to come out there, and then I can have that coming down and just bumping into my poke leaf. And actually that would just still keep going underneath there too. And I'm just going to keep, just have one coming under there. And you are just concentrating on that line that you are drawn at this moment. I'm leaving that one, I'm going to just let that one because I'm going to tangle in this space. I might just have one that's going to come up from here. Go along. And then just aura that. Come along. Bump into there. Like so. And you can keep going with this. Just follow that little line underneath and just see where would it come out. And as it passes under each of those little roads, just dot it in. And just be careful, because I think sometimes we have a tendency to come up to a line. So if I was coming across here, sometimes you have a tendency to come up to a line and just stop short. So it's kind of just hanging. So just make sure that you come straight in, and actually it's gonna just touch that other line before it goes underneath. So just have a look and just see, make sure your lines are actually, you know, hitting that other line and then gone underneath. So I might actually have one coming from under here, so it's going to be up here. Let's see where that would come out about there. And then go on that way. And your lines are going to be all different sizes and different widths, and that's absolutely fine. Just try that. There we are. I'm just going to remind you just to have a nice breath in, because I think sometimes when we're doing this we sort of stop breathing because we're concentrating so much, so we need to just remember to just breathe. Okay. So now I've done that, you can start, if you like, to fill in the spaces underneath. They can be left as they are, they can be left blank, but you could just do a little aura all the way around. So I'm just going to do a little sort of shape to fill that space, like that. And then I'm just going to fill it with some tipple, which is little circles. Little orbs. And they can be bigger, smaller, whatever size you want them to be. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to just go around and aura the shape. And then I'm going to just pop some little orbs in there. You could just do the orbs without even doing the aura if you like. I'm just going to go around and do an aura of that shape. And then I'm going to fill it with little orbs and bigger ones. Some little squashed ones depending on the space that I have. So there, aura, and then this has got little tiny little orbs because it's a small space. And even on this one here, I'm going to have some little tiny and where it comes to the poke leaf, I am going to have to aura that little bump that the leaf has created, and then we'll do little circles. So these are called tipple. Just remember, you can turn your tile. This one can be slightly bigger. They're going to be the size that you have made them, and that is perfectly fine. Got this one that's kind of going to be a strange shape around one of my leaves here. So I'm just going to follow it around, and if it meets up, that's fine. I can just have two little shapes that I'm going to fill in, and that's absolutely fine. And where it's really, really small, I'm not going to, like that little tiny one, I could actually just colour that in with just the black. Okay. Actually do here, so I'm just going to go over the border that I created earlier, just to redefine that. And this is my curly whirly border that I did, which is fine. I'm just going to come down and just carry that along like so, and then I'm just going to do some orbs just in this space because it's a really strange shape. So there we are. That's my tipple in my hollyba. So I filled in all the spaces basically with an aura, and then just filled it with little orbs. And where it was really tiny, I'm just gonna colour it in. Okay. So that's my hollyba that I've done here, and we've got our poke leaf. So I'm going to turn my towel around now, and we're going to have a go at the Kiko, which is the basket weave one that I spoke to you about at the start. Okay, and it is like a grid pattern. I'm not going to draw a grid, but if you felt more comfortable, you could do some little sort of spaces like dots along your border, just if that made you feel more comfortable in terms of drawing and getting them in a more defined pattern. So I'm going to just start by drawing 4 lines, okay, and then I'm going to come across and do 4 lines the opposite way. Okay, and obviously as I come down and I'm bumping into my road, I won't have 4 lines because some would have gone behind. So I've just got to imagine that there's a line there, then the next one's going to come there, then the next one, and then the next one. Okay, so I'm just imagining that there would be some that would get stuck behind my road, and then the next ones are going to come out. And then again, if you see, if I come down, there would actually be one starting here. So I'm just going to imagine that there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then my other ones are disappearing. Okay, so that's kind of the start of my Kiko. And then up here, I'm going to go along 1, 2, 3, 4, and then come down 1, 2, 3, 4. And you do want to try and keep them all the same length, although I do find it hard. But just see how you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And each time they're going to go in the opposite direction to the one that's beside it. So my lines are going down here, so then they're going to go across here. So if they're going across here, they're going to come down beside it. Okay, so it's always the opposite. And where it bumps into something, you're just imagining where that would go, and if you can see the top part of it, then draw it in if you've got space. And just move your tile around until you're in a comfortable position to do your next set of lines. Okay, and they're not all going to be the same size. They are going to be different, and that is absolutely fine. So I'm just going to work across my page here, across the tile. Left is hanging up in the air there. And as I say, where you bump into something, you're just going to imagine where that would go. So there would be another line under there. So then I've got 1, 3. And move the tile so that it's comfortable for you. That's just building up. I'm going to go right to the end of my tile here where it hits the other border. Just remember to breathe. I know I keep saying that, but it's just when we get really engrossed, we kind of hold our breath. So it's just a reminder to just let it go and just breathe normally. And there's no race. You're going to be going at the speed that is just right for you. So that'll be different to me. And yours is going to look exactly how it's supposed to look. It may not look exactly the same as mine. It most likely will not look anything like mine, and that is absolutely fine too. We all started with our strings maybe going in a slightly different way. And basically the picture went where it went. So yours is going to be unique. So when you get to the edge of your border, you can stop. And I'm just going to redefine now my border on that side as well. So I'm going to go along with my pen and just define the border if I want. Just meets up there. I'm going to go down the other side as well. And I'm not going to do this side yet. Sorry, I went off camera. So I've just gone along my border on 3 sides because I haven't done my design in this one yet. And until I decide what I'm doing in this one, basically, I don't want to do my definition of my border yet. So I think the next one I'm going to do is this little chill-on one. Okay, and this one is basically a grid pattern, so we're actually going to draw a grid into our final space. And if you've got another space, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a grid in this last space that I have. So I'm basically going to start from the top, and I'm just going to come along and do like a line just coming from one side to to the other, and where it meets something I'll stop and continue it underneath. Okay, and then I'll turn it round and I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to come and start a grid going across, and as I say, where it meets something I'll stop. And your squares are going to be different to my squares, and that's absolutely fine. I've just noticed a little space there that I can do that I obviously didn't see when I was doing my filling in the spaces. Just catch up there. So I've done my grid. And actually there's probably going to be a line up, to be fair. There'll be probably one there as well. Okay. So I'm going to go along and I'm going to do a little kind of half moon sort of shadow on these. So just on each one, I'm just going to do a little wavy bump. And obviously I'm going to imagine where that wavy bump is going to come out and go in, where I might not have the full grid to see. Just go along. And then just go in the corner I wanted. So okay, and then I'm going to just turn my tile, and then I'm going to do a little bump on all of the lines that are now horizontal. Okay, and you're just going to imagine where that would be. But just go along. And then I'm going to do a little, like a little diamond shape basically, where each of these meet. So it kind of begins to look like, you know, one of those Chesterfield kind of leather chairs. It has the kind of button bits in them. So you're going to do these little sort of button shapes then, but they're little diamonds. So just a little triangle on the top and a little triangle on the bottom bit. So a little triangle. 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 Just where there's four that all meet. A little triangle at the top and a little triangle at the bottom. And you're just colouring it in. And then here I'm only going to be able to see the top of the triangle, so I'll just go along and make sure I pop those in as well. And I'd probably see a little bit of the triangle on that one. Okay, and that one was called Chillon. Okay, just so you know. So that's my tangles that I've done. So now I can come along and just reaffirm this border here. So I'll just come along and do that. And where it meets the little poke leaf, I'm going to just go under and then go through that way. Okay. So that's my tangling done. And the next step to do is the shading. So I'm just going to come in and add some shading with my soft pencil. So with the Hollyba first, I'm just going to come along and just shade on one side of all of my roads here. Okay, I know I call them roads. Just going to come in and shade on that bit there. Just on one side. And in Zentangle there isn't a concept of light and shade and you know which way the light's coming. You're basically just adding shade so that it kind of makes the picture pop out at you. So then I'm going to just come along, I've got this little paper stump, and I'm just going to blend that out a little bit. Okay, and there's going to be enough graphite on my pencil to do that bit. And this will actually basically make bits of my picture pop. So it'll give depth and dimension to it. Okay, and just on that one, and on that one. And that kind of just makes it pop out at you. So sorry, my video just conked out there, so I'm gonna start and just talk about the shading. The shading basically takes it from a two-dimensional to a three-dimensional picture. And then on the Kiko one, I just choose to shade all of the pieces that are vertical. So I'll just come in and shade all of the vertical ones. And I've already put some graphite just on each one of those vertical . So I'm just going in and shading those. And then on the poke leaf, just gone in on each one on the left hand side and just on a little bit of the graphite pencil on each one. Just like that. And then I'm going to just come back in with that paper stump and just blend that in. And it really is just adding a bit of depth to the picture, giving you the shade on one side. And it isn't about light and dark and which direction the light's coming or anything like that with Zentangle. It is just giving you dimension so that it pops. And then with your pillows, just a little bit of pencil in the middle of each one. And then we can come in and just blend that out. And that'll make them pop. Okay, so that's going to make those just pop out. Okay, I think that's it. And then the final step is just to put your initial, and I've put my initial just in on the little curly line there that I had. I just put my initials there. You could put the initials in one of your little poke leaves or in one of your little pillows, or even just on the end of one of your holly buds there, you could just have your initials, and that just finishes off your piece of art. And then I'd like you just to hold it back away from you at arm's length and really have a look at it in each of the directions, just turning it round and looking and appreciating that this is your piece of work that you've done today. It's a piece of your artwork. Okay, it's a little piece of art that you've made today. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that, and see you next time.